Astrid, good morning. We're so happy to have you this morning.
Good morning, Lynn. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning. I think we're going to go right into our program this morning because we're a little late. Sorry to keep everybody waiting. Astrid, I'm very happy to see you. And Katerina, are you going to introduce Astrid?
Yes. So today we welcome Astrid Schillings and jump right into the program since we're a few minutes late. So Astrid, over to you.
Thank you very much, Katerina. And I would like to share a glimpse of the work and the questions I have. And so one of the wishes I had was to keep what we call the classical focusing and have an expansion into the body. And so that is not theoretical. I would like to start with an exploration. You can sense, you can recognize a voice talking to you through this display. And you can recognize all the persons looking in. And at the same time, if you just shift your awareness slightly, you can see a display and you can see a box in front of you, and you can touch the box. And you can again shift your awareness, and there's the voice, and the face is looking at you. And I invite you just to take a moment to feel that, because that's really a miracle. And if you have a pet, no cat or dog could do that. And it's our human body, mind, consciousness, environment that co-creates. And it is actually just allow that to be there for you without any further what that feels like, that can happen. After this small initial exploration, I would like to invite you to go further and maybe close your eyes or put your gaze down and just sense into grounding into being here. And I invite you to listen to the kind of language I'm using, which is not like what you may know from a body scan. So I invite you to sense into your feet and sense how they want to be there. So maybe you can just go back into your feet. And now there is a stillness that helps. And sense how they want to be there. And maybe they want to move a little bit to sense the solid ground. There is something that supports. And then there is also these joints, and there are these play spaces in the joints, in the feet as well as the ankle joints, and just sense these play spaces. Yeah, and you can travel up into the knee joints and sense how do they want to be there? How do they want to be there? Yeah. And then if you feel like staying sitting, you can stay sitting. But if you feel like just standing up and the body may want to have a stretch or a yawn. Yeah, just allow that. And if you want to stay sitting, that's fine. Just sense how it wants to be, how it wants to be. And it's not about what you think it might want to be. Yeah. Yeah. And for those who are sitting, we can also move up to the sit bones and play a little bit with the weight. And if you stand, some are standing, you can sense that, yeah. And the lower back. Yes. And then there is a real piece of art. All these bones and spaces in the spine. And it is a connecting of spaces and bone. And this is a real piece of art. It's so flexible. And we better protect those spaces. If they're not protected, we can get a lot of pain. And this structure keeps us in place, but it's so flexible. And just sense how that wants to be here. Yeah, how it may want to move. And there are the shoulders. And they have their own way of wanting to be here. Yeah, just listening to them. And then allowing your sensing go further inside your body, through the arms, the elbows, into the fingers, and they all have their way of being here. And there's also the neck and the shoulders again. They have their own agenda. And just allowing, wow, how does it want to be here? Your head. Yeah. Your face. And there's the throat. And of course, this breathing happening all your life. Ongoing. And just sensing this big movement and how it wants to breathe. It changes every moment, whether we're waiting for a Zoom link or something doesn't work with a microphone, the breathing changes instantly. Yeah. And now I invite you again to sense into your feet, how they are now connecting to the ground underneath. Maybe they want to be a little different. And you can sense there is a solidity there. And it's the ground that carries us all. So we are starting to invite also the bigger existence. There is this ground carrying every living being, It's carrying my life and it carries every living being. And there's the air. The in and out of airing. The light. The space above us and around us. And you can let it get really as big as you feel is comfortable. Maybe the walls of your room, but it also may go a little further, as far as you're comfortable in the sensing. Yeah. And of course, we have also the group here, the people with us. They are not in our room, but in a very, very miraculous way, we can sense them. Yeah, we can sense people with us from far away. So now I invite you in your own time, take your time to feel how is all of that being here, feeling right now in my body. How is all of that feeling, being here, just being here in my body. And just allow a moment to sense what this is like. And I also invite a second sensing, if that's okay for you. What is it like to sense, I'm here with all of that. I am here. Just sensing that. So, in your own time, you can open your eyes. Just allow it. You don't have to make it happen. Invite you to share a little bit of what you've been experiencing. Maybe also how the language was used. And anything you observed. I would be grateful if you would share a little bit, because that helps me to elaborate on where I want to go.
I find that my feet are much happier now.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a sense of a bigger capacity to hold the sorrow of the world.
Mm-hmm. So that they are happier now, and there is a bigger capacity to hold the sorrow of the world, okay? Mm-hmm.
The big world, the big
world, okay.
yes. And that these little feet can somehow help to navigate
Mm-hmm.
with the felt sensing widening out.
Mm-hmm.
There's a promise, it's a sense of promise that we are all working towards a better world for everyone. I loved how you brought in that each and every being has a breath. So you united us with our bigger purpose.
Mm-hmm. So this is the second aspect that I call inviting in the larger existence. And the larger connection, sort of, there is our life, our individual life, and there is that larger life. Yeah. Anybody else? Yeah, Dorothy.
I found there was a little bit of conflict when you said, let your body speak. I found there was a little bit of conflict between my head telling me, oh, there's a pain here, I need it here, versus letting my body speak.
Did I say letting my body speak? I don't think I used that word.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh,
I wouldn't. Knowing myself, I wouldn't use that word.
oh, interesting. Was there something about like letting it come from your senses or come from, was there anything about that? Or did I just totally mishear?
What I try with this kind of languaging, the bodying process language, is to invite that the body finds its way of being here, right? I wouldn't say sit this or that way. I would say things like, oh, how does your body want to sit? How does your body want to stand? How my shoulders very often are tense, so, thank God, not all the time. So what happens is that I can say, oh, how do my shoulders want to be when I'm in front of the computer? And you have a shift in perspective in the bodying when you invite this very body, that's what I call bodying language. Does that resonate with you somehow? But sometimes people don't hear it, you see, so you're not alone in that, because we think differently usually about the body. Yeah. Does that help somehow? I don't know.
Yes. No, it does. It's a different orientation and I could see how it would be helpful. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Anybody else? Yes, Elizabeth. You're muted, Elizabeth.
There you are.
You used the word again a minute ago, and I think it was when the body looks at the larger space, maybe something like that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I actually do that often in my own personal space. And as just immediately, as soon as you said the word, I felt what always comes, which is the larger without words. I mean, the really larger.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was glad that you invited that.
Uh-huh.
That's good.
How did it feel different?
Oh, not only do thoughts completely disappear, but it's something that doesn't have words, but I'll give it some words to try.
Mm-hmm.
Let us say as though my body no longer had weight, but it was alive and there's movement, there's inner tiny vibrational movement.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it feels like that I'm alive, completely alive and conscious. There are no thoughts,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
and there is a presence.
Okay. Yeah.
I'll even say a loving, expansive presence. That's it.
Loving, expansive. And this is that sense of being alive, right?
Yes, and being alive in a very different way.
In a very different way. Yes. Do you want to say something, Susan?
Uh,
Yeah.
I was just going to add my experience when what stands out, one of the things, when you said feet, my feet got thick. They got, I guess, alive because I felt the floor, and I felt my feet had thickness and feeling throughout. I too found
my thoughts got much, much quieter, and my body got, my sense of it was much larger.
Yeah.
And
more volume there, much larger.
I
Yeah.
was going to say lighter, but I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm.
Because, and also my arms wanted to move
Mm-hmm.
of themselves.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I loved you're talking about the what was it, the larger life, because I have trouble sometimes, you know, experiencing that other people are as real as I am, experiencing that. I know they are, but and
Experiencing it, feeling it, sensing it.
yeah, and a different kind of knowing it all the way through my body. And this felt coming much closer to that.
Mm-hmm. Coming much closer to that. That's sensing it really in your body. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The space was more permeable.
Okay. More permeable. Mm-hmm. So I'm grateful you had the patience and go through this process with me. If nobody else wants to speak, if somebody else wants still to speak, I'm very happy to hear that. Otherwise, I'll just explain a little bit.
I just want to say that I so liked the continuity of feeling my feet and then feeling the ground and the whole big, and then feeling the people, and it was all the same kind of feeling in a way, that we an experience of being the environment, that there isn't that much difference in the sensing of my body and the sensing of the people.
Yes, thank you. Yeah. And what I tried here was bringing into the experiencing the concept we know from Gene so well, the expanded understanding of the human body. And this is, in my sense, what it is about, that the body, and I now tend to call it bodying, because when people in German, the word Körpern doesn't exist either. Bodying doesn't exist. But when people say, so what do you really mean by this? I like that interruption, because it makes people wonder, what does she mean? And then this back and forth starts, that the body is not only not a physical machine, but it's much easier to unfold, like now in experiencing. The body is not a thing by itself. Not even any living creature can be by itself. And as Gene said, we have at least plant bodies. At least plant bodies. What he means by that is that, in a very deep sense, the plants knows all about the earth and the sun and the water. And it just knows it by living in and through the environment. And this is true for our human body, of course, too. We're living in and through the environment, but it keeps getting knocked over all the time. So I was, compared to how we develop it and build it up, when I'm giving a longer workshop, we were very fast. So I'm trying to explain two things at the same time. And that is inviting this larger interaction, all that nourishes us and holds us. And also explaining what this bodying language wants. It is true for inviting our organismic self-regulation. The body is so much older than we are.
Mm.
It is when I forgot, I wanted to say it in the exploration, but I can say it now. When you sense into all what it knows and does, the whole of evolution is in it all the time. So it's a vast implying, and in the first focusing book, Gene, the little focusing Bible, I call it sometimes, he writes this that I can't quote it all by heart, but he points out to that we are here and other places, and it's a gigantic system, and so I don't want this to be theory. And that's how I call this grounding into being here. And there is some of Heidegger in there, because he said being here, sein is ein in der Welt sein, a being in the world. That means that was a relational being. And in English, you have this word being, which is always a process. In German, we say sein. And sein can imply a noun, which gives a different feel to a German being compared to an English-speaking being, maybe. I don't know. And so, did anybody feel a difference between a sense of all of that being here, or a sense of I am here? Did anybody feel a difference there, or did it not make such a difference? It makes a difference for some people. That's why I keep giving both choices. There are so many aspects to this. This goes into the direction of clearing space. That was Gene's. Gene wanted the body to experience itself, not having the problems, not being the problems. You remember that. And grounding into being here and inviting the organismic self-regulation, which I hardly did here at all. So I'm just saying, well, when I ask if it needs to stretch, move, or yawn, that is part of an organismic self-regulation or self-organization. So the problem with clearing space for some people is that when they put things outside or next to them, even though they know they're still here, some are worried, who am I without my problems? So for some people, that is not so easy. And in this grounding into being here, you invite something that can be alive to a lot of people, not everybody. People may have such severe trauma that they cannot be in their bodies at all. So there you have to be careful. But some part of the body can sense some part of the existence around you, usually. And it is not necessarily that it's all perfect and the whole body is interacting all the time. If there are certain parts of the body feeling alive and in interaction, that can be a very good start. Yeah. I would like to very much start with a quote from Gene from 78. That's the first quote, Katharina. Okay. It is in the chapter of the book. So the true process elements, we have being here and life living from itself. That's what the organism wants. It wants to live from itself in interaction. And there is this quote, I'm going to read it, by Gene: to take such a break is to align the body again to its original source. One takes it out of being the problem. The body eases and feels expansive. How did the body come in the first place? The individual person was not in charge of that. Similarly, I can ease my controls in living, at least temporarily, to let my body re-establish its natural belongingness in the wider scheme of forces in which it is made and maintained. So I feel very connected to this perspective on, you can close down the text now. I think yeah, thank you. You can, the source is given, so if you want to read the whole text, you can. So I find that this gives a perspective on what Gene wanted this. This was before he actually developed clearing space. So it was on the way of being developed. But that is his intention. He wants us to be in touch with that source where the living lives from. And I find that very, very fundamental, this. So this is for me the base, and for helpers especially, this is grounding into being here, and also the living from itself, for me, is a very fundamental basis also for how we work, because we are environment for each other all the time. And when somebody comes to therapy, they come into my environment, and the way I am in my body, the way I am also my body, is part of the interaction. So if I tend to be worried about something, there is something in my body that may feel like this to the person, and they have no sense of what it might be. They may not even notice it consciously. So helping myself to be there, this is a wonderful offer for myself. So it's about self-care, certainly going through the body, and you can do it faster. But it also points to something, that's another aspect of it, which I haven't mentioned so far. There is this deep incongruence. I call it the big incongruence. Very often we have between our living body and culture. Like, we are supposed to sit a certain way. We are not supposed to yawn. We are supposed to work at hours that don't fit into our body biorhythms and stuff like that. So we have a lot of imposing of culture all the time. And very often we forget listening into this organismic, well, Rogers would say organismic actualization, but I would say this bodily sensum underneath. But this is the base from which we make meaning. So if we are very tense in a conversation, or if we are very anxious, or we have a constant a tense belly or something like that, it will change how we listen into ourselves and how the felt sense can come. So the felt sense is not a neutral path to truth. A felt sense is a constant interacting with everything there is here. So taking care of myself by going through the body puts me in a position where I can be more open, more present with somebody else. some of my colleagues call it the process before the process. So, and sometimes when I offer it explicitly to a client, it can also be a help to sense I am more than my problem. So I don't disidentify with it, but I don't identify with it either. So as I am here and it's also here, but I'm more than that. So this can be very helpful for clients, but for me as well. And it is that what Gene pointed to in the little steps when he talked about human presence, that I put something, my personal stuff on the left, and I put all what I've learned on the right, and then I can really be with a person. So I give you a further organismic deepening, a further possibility. And so there are two dimensions to that. That is the expansion and the containment. So if it's too large, you can sort of come back to your feet and to your body if you get lost, if it's too dizzy, too spacey. But if it's too close, too dense, you can invite the light or any larger context to help you to be there, but in a physical way. So clearing space has a similar intention, and it goes about it slightly differently. Yeah. But you can combine the two quite well. So the last one I find for me most important is that it can open a door to the more. And that is when you can dwell in it for a long time, maybe a practice, 20 minutes in the morning, and you're allowing life to live from itself. It's getting very subtle, and it can become really, really large. And it is an entry into the realm of meaning making in a different sense, as some would call it spiritual. I appreciate about Gendlin's language that he doesn't call it, his language isn't spiritual explicitly, not so. But if you have a sense for it, it can open by actually being in your body and listening into this process deeply. I hope I'm being clear. Or are there any questions with that? Can I respond to something? Been talking a long time.
There might be a couple of comments or questions before we have the breakout room and have time for a few.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Astrid. I'm in one of these little boxes.
You wait.
We see you.
Yeah, Pauline. Yeah.
Good. How you doing? Yeah, it's kind of more a comment, really, rather than it's kind of like what's alive in me is the reaction to an assumption that we're some way one with each other, you know. So I suppose I'm holding out for the individual first, and then theory second, maybe even Gendlin second. You know, it's like all of that out there, interesting, but that it's the autonomy of the human organism first. And I suppose it's that position that they don't give up, you know, they don't surrender without anything. There's no need to surrender any of their opinions, their whatever. So it might or might not be true what you said, or anyone. And I suppose in these times, you know, it's like really holding on and checking out the environment. Is it safe to express this or whatever, you know? So I suppose that's what I'm sensing into. And with the dance that we did since you've come on, that's what was alive in me, just in and out of spaces, and really holding on to it. Might be true, might not be true, you know. So really just loving that is there. Yeah.
That is, I'm very much with you there, to explore and sense it for ourselves.
Yes.
Otherwise, it doesn't mean anything really, except it's
No, I think it can be discordant as well if someone is even wanting to, it's kind of really just and I think focusing is really so clear on that, when we are focusing, it's the individual sovereignty, being sovereign, that there is, and coming in. The theory is another dance.
I want to, this is would be an issue for another time, but it is.
We have an issue?
Yeah, no, we don't have an issue. No, this would be an issue for another time.
Yeah.
And that is, I'm, especially in these current situation politically, I'm going into the difference between gut feelings and felt sense. And I think that's vitally important to explore that. And I'm in the process of developing some explorations, because I think this is something we need, because there is a lot of gut feelings. I feel that, and because that I've posting.
Yes, I'm really interested in that, especially when you say, "Who am I without my problems?" But my question would be, who would I be without an identity? So it's like that first, and then we're going into. But anyway, it was like just giving that back. Yeah, just
yes, thank you.
Resonance.
This is wonderful, because you say something I didn't mention so far, and that is, if you use this to prepare yourself for a therapy hour, or you do it together with a client and it changes how you are together, that's one thing. But if you allow this 20 minutes in the morning, that you find how life lives from itself, and that's experiential, it will shift your identity. It will shift how you feel who you are. It will shift what you think, how you make decisions. And it's a very subtle process, and I cannot do it in 1.5 hours here, but I want to say there is this entrance, and there is another wee little quote from Gene that I like. And which one is it? Wait, it's the quote number 2, and that may fit this. I can just start reading it.
Yes, go ahead.
I'm sure that there is an entry to the steps through the literal body. Once you come into this literal body here, then you find a space that is much bigger than your literal body. It is quite clear that it is not exactly your literal body, but that is where the entrance is. There might be other entrances.
Beautiful quote.
And it's this, we can work with the literal body, and it depends on how we dwell in it, how we're being with doors and spaces open that are much larger. And so there is also an interfacing of, I've been talking with Gene a lot about this interfacing meditation and focusing, and there was no either or. It was more like, it depends where you are, in what kind of quality of meditation, and where you are in your focusing. And so I thought that helps. So it's in the literal body, and there is much more. And we just have to go there and dwell there. Yeah. And so just only a few things before we go into the rooms. There is this bodying process language, and that is what I'm trying, or what I tried with my languaging is to address the qualities of the movement of a gesture or whatever. That is the quality, the vitality of a movement, and the intensity. I would not describe movements because I think one reason that movement, gesture, and body posture, why it was not so easily included in classical focusing, we have more the sensing and the images and the wording, which I love. That's why I never gave it up. And this quality tries to support that people, when you see their hand moving and you say something, they will immediately stop and feel as if they have been watched, observed, and you caught them. But when you have a different way of being with them, then they can sustain sometimes the movement of a hand or a foot. And you can say, oh, it is there is something really soft in your hand. Oh, there is some kind of energy in that shoulder moving there. So you give them the quality and not a mirror image. And that allows them more easily to stay in their body, because very often when you give them the mirror image, they lose it. And only then, when they can sustain their awareing in the moving, in the gesturing, in the, oh my God, the tense feeling here, then I may even say, oh, this is a very big circle coming out of this. And I want to give you the example of dancers. When dancers want to learn a form, they look in the mirror. But when dancers improvise, they pull a curtain in front of the mirror, and that has, so I say bodying back, and I don't say reflecting or mirroring. We are bodying back, and we are interbodying or bodying out. And Gene used it once in the process model, but I thought the word bodying really captures it nicely. So I wanted to at least mention some of that because I find it very important when we are working with the body, because it brings very different aspects in therapy alive, and we can be with our clients in a different quality. I have an experiment you could take into the breakout rooms if you wanted to, but maybe that is a little bit too much. How are we for time? I'm not sure.
We have about 15 minutes.
15 minutes. Okay. What sometimes helps when I'm with somebody I find it maybe not so easy with, and I'm just giving you a gist of it where you would have to work on it longer. So what I sometimes ask is, okay, so what kind of environment may have brought this way of being in this person? What kind of environment needed this response in that person? So I'm just giving you this. And the second aspect is, and this is really a shortcut after a lot of work. So if I'm the fresh environment, what does it need in this relationship? What answer does it need so that the life of this child, this patient, this client can move on or move forward? And I find that sometimes helpful when there is something like a stop process. So yes, thank you. I'm just suggesting, I feel like you do in your outbreak rooms what you want, of course.
Thank you, Astrid.
Yes, Calliope?
Yes, hello, Astrid. I would love to hear more about these two last statements, suggestions, invitations that you gave us. I mean, that might take time from the breakout rooms, but I'd like to, I don't know, if you continue, if people agree, I don't know.
Yeah,
What we-
what we could do is you stay in the breakout rooms and we continue with it afterwards. You had an experience, whatever you like, we can.
Or also, Astrid, you could stay in the big room and
Yeah,
the
whoever
OB,
wants to talk with me can.
and yes, anybody else that wants to hear more about that, and other people that want to share in a small group what you've gotten so far, we'll go into the breakout rooms, and then we'll come back at 9:35.
Okay.
And I'm going to have to leave. I'm leaving town this morning. So I will see you all next week.
Here you are, and you're in the big room, Astrid, with those who would like to stay with you here.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
the others are happy in their breakout rooms.
Okay. So, what would you like to hear?
Astrid, this is BJ.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being with us today. You were giving an instruction about the kind of environment that was present or that is required for this particular X phenomenon, experience, whatever. And it has that kind of reflexive language. And so you don't catch it at first. But as I understood it, you were looking at this experience that's not so satisfactory and asking what was the environment in which this experience thrives.
Yeah.
So that we could identify the environment and welcome a fresh environment. Now that's what I heard.
Right. It's a complex. Thank you for asking this, actually. It is one thing that I sometimes find a diagnosis of a person doesn't tell me so much, but more a sensing of the person, right? And so there may be some stopped processes. There may be something that person can't respond to, or is this so-called dysfunctional, the way they behave. And when I'm sensing with this question, after having sensed what the relationship feels like, there are other things I usually do beforehand. But sensing with this difficult behavior, expression of this person, sensing, all right, what kind of environment, in what kind of environment did that work? In what kind of environment was that meaningful? That for me very often unlocks something. Because I do not come so much from a diagnostic perspective, but more in this what genes with the sense making in our behavior, in our way we speak, the way we hold ourselves in the body. There is an environment, and our body life never was outside of environment. So there was a meaningful interaction with environment at some point, and at this point now in your life, living in different environments, interacting in different environments, it doesn't work. It's a different implying than when it came into existence. Does that make more sense now? And it helps to sense, to go there with a felt sensing and not with a cognitive mind, yeah? Not to say, oh yeah, of course, he came from this and that family and blah, blah, blah. We know all that. And sometimes that doesn't do that little thing you may need to have more of a feel for where this person comes from. And the fresh environment, well, of course, we are environment, and I can be a fresh environment with this person. So once I'm sensing where some stuckness, some stoppage is, I may resonate with what it might need. And another way of doing this for people who are not so much in focusing, I sometimes say, all right, if you could wish something for your client, what would you wish for? And very often these qualities come that a certain quality of interaction could be helpful so that they can move on. And that is, I found that also interesting when I introduced this work in the Netherlands in a parents and children gathering they had with Renee. A mother came and said, "This worked so well with my teenage son. I had no clue where this behavior would make sense." And it suddenly resonated with her, and she felt there might be a possibility, and maybe I can be with him differently. So it's not only for therapists, maybe.
It reminds me of a phrase that in parts work, where one says, "Oh, that part has its own good reasons, that it's being protective. There was a time when it really worked well, and that the time is not that anymore." Does that kind of get at it as well?
Yeah, it gets into that direction. What I'm trying here is sort of to explicitly, like what I like in supervision also. I mean, I have this sheet for self-supervision or working with it in supervision. Like you can have what it feels like, how my body life senses myself and the presence of this other person, or how do I sense our relating? They may not be the same. And when you need even more, then I come with something like that. Well, so what kind of a situation? Well, what? And then it gets, how can I say, it gets more felt sensey. It's sort of, there come diversity and the cognition, I know this made sense at a certain time. That can go into it. It implies it's the implying with your behavior, so that's okay. It's just that brings another aspect of it, but it's that direction. Thank you, BJ.
Anybody else? What? Somebody say something. Calliope, what's the confusion? I'm very interested in this as well. Somebody else have language?
Confusion?
Not confusion for me, if that's what.
That is what I, yes.
Directly, BJ. No. I really like these suggestions, these invitations to really keep trying to sense the environment we're in and with the client or whoever, and the environment that the client came from.
Yeah.
It may not be easy necessarily, because like the cognitive can interfere pretty easily, but it's that to keep reminded of really keep sensing. I like that in terms of the background information or whatever it is that
But the background, I find the background information usually very important. But what I noticed over the years is that the background information doesn't do it all. There is a non-verbal sensing between the client and me that isn't completely covered by that background information. And that's how you can bring a felt sense. There may be something he or she didn't talk about, and you're sensing something different there. you don't know where it comes from. So I do verbalize it. I do give it back to the person, and I body it back, as I said earlier, and sometimes something comes that neither the person or me expected. So yeah.
I like that. I like very much you said that you also bring it in, like for the person, you give your sense
Oh, yeah.
about that. I mean, I do it for other, but that's an interesting
Yeah.
or thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it can be, I give an example that almost, if we hadn't found it, it would have been tragic. There was somebody suffering from a woman suffering from symptoms that would point to the possibility of abuse. And she had this hypothesis, it must have been my violent father, and she just was very stuck in that. And 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 so I tried this with the environment. Where does it make sense to stick with that? And is there, when you sense back into your childhood and what it was like, so can you sense any disruption and how that was? What came out later was that she had been in hospital. I had believed her symptoms. But something didn't quite feel quite right with her father. He was a violent man, yes. And there was something else, and I had no verbal something for it. And then it came out she was in the hospital and she had a catheter. Do you say that in English? She had a catheter, so you could have symptoms of abuse, but they were a different kind of abuse. But the symptoms, so you believe the symptoms, you believe the descriptions, and it's a sensing, a trying of how does that make sense? And something felt like not quite right. And that was that nonverbal level. And that was very helpful. Yes, she had a violent father, but he hadn't abused her at the same time. So that did make a difference in this woman's life. So that is, when it's bumpy, sometimes you come up with details you don't have before. And it is this bodying that I pick up the gesture the person makes, another thing is that sometimes we symbolize, but sometimes we are looking for something. So if there's a sensing for something, people, looking for something, I sense into that and I accompany them, and I body it back and I give them the language so they can stay in the bodily looking for something. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, and welcome back, everyone. Oh,
Astrid, do you have any recordings on a website or anything of your demonstration, or how you work like this?
We created some. I have some in German. They wouldn't be helpful, but we created some recordings in Hungarian. So if you can put up with, we speak English, but it's translated into Hungarian. If that doesn't put you off, I will put it on my website at some point. Yeah.
Thank you.
Astrid, I had an opportunity to listen to the interview that you did with Serge Pringle a long time ago. And I recommend that to anyone else too, in terms of understanding your motivation, Ingrid. I found it really quite beautiful.
Astrid, not Ingrid.
I'm sorry. Yes, Astrid.
Don't worry. A lot of people call me Ingrid. I don't know why. Maybe I look like them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I believe Katerina sent that to us.
Yeah, she did. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
On the Zoom link.
Mm-hmm. So is everybody back now from their okay. So did somebody experiment with this, and how did it go or not go? I'm interested, of course.
So I would share that you said this topic was in issue is a different session, but you mentioned this with the gut feeling and the felt sense.
Yeah.
And so it really clarifies for me something very important, because the gut feeling is for me more egocentric. It's just me. And the felt sense is a kind of interaction interwoven with the environment. And so it makes huge difference.
Yeah.
That something in that direction. Because very often because I'm teaching also meditation, when I said, okay, it's very strict in some ways, but if you invite people to do it their way, it sometimes starts, oh, I just sense it in that way. And it has a kind of hardening, rigid quality, which is not in the felt sense. So this is my first approach about this difference between gut feeling and felt sense. So the interaction or the awareness about I am in kind of interaction with the environment or different environments. I just would like to change that.
I think that in the process model, Gene refers to a gut feeling as a slotted feeling.
Exactly.
Slotted, he means that it's the feeling that somebody in your culture would be expected to have in that situation. So if somebody insults you, you feel, demeaned or insulted because that's what the culture requires of you. And that's the distinction that he makes.
I would like to add something, Jim. Thank you very much. And this slotted feelings, like these gut feelings, everybody would be angry and I really want to beat this guy up. They change the situation in an expected way, as Jim pointed out. And the felt sense invites the whole of the situation and therefore shifts possibly the whole situation. So that is a major difference. And I think there's a lot of relevance in politically now how we understand felt sense. And there's more, and I would like to work on that. The obedience pattern, for example, is a wonderful piece to read around obedience and the felt sense. Yeah. Anything else?
Were you referring to, when you said the obedience sense, were you indicating that there's something to read about?
Yes. Gendlin wrote a wonderful piece, Obedience Pattern. You can get it on the online Gendlin online library. And he points out, I can't quote it all by heart, but it is like obedience. He talks of Meister Eckhart and the obedience to the abbot or the little voice inside. And he has his doubts where the obedience should go. And that is a wonderful work, the obedience pattern, very worthwhile reading in these days. Yeah.
I just put it in the chat.
Thank you. Thank you.
Astrid, I was
who is speaking?
It's Mikael.
Okay.
I was I don't know, excited with when you said what kind of environment people were in order for them to respond in a certain way. And then in our chat room, I talked about, well, my sister and I were living in the same environment, same parents, same kitchen, same basement. Two of us were not responding the same way at all. And then we started talking, well, what environment are we talking about? What is considered outside, or this body, as we say we use, is my environment, my living environment, which has its own rules and laws and perceptions and stuff, and it's all subjective, and same thing for everyone else in the family or around us. Everybody is in their own subjective world. No one is really living the world the way it is, because it's not the way it is, the way we make it happen.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all very unique worlds,
Right.
that we're all living together side by side, when no one else is really knowing what anybody else is experiencing. So it's quite intriguing to ask the question, what kind of environment are these people making themselves experience?
Mikael, I just wanted to respond, because we have so little time, that you were just portraying everybody as in their own little cocoon, but
No, not
they're
that.
all, you know, I wanted to put in the relational, that just because you and a
Yes.
sibling were raised in the same environment, even including the same parents, I think parents treat different children very differently, have massively different, if you will, transferences and countertransferences to their different children. Parents as a couple treat one child different from another. So,
Yes, you're right, absolutely. And
yeah,
it has also a different way of looking at things. If you're a therapist or a somatic educator, you don't see the same things. And it's hard to understand it also. But you're right, you're putting a little element that makes all the difference. Thank you.
Yes, and she is a girl and you were a boy, but
thank
that's
you.
not only that, but you point to something very important, Michael, and that is, as children, we also make our own environments. That's exactly also true. And our critical voices sometimes are not only what parents actually said to us, but there are also decisions children make at certain points in their life, and they may be due to a misunderstanding of some kind, but that's how also children create then their environments. So this is both very valid. I want to support both of this. Yeah.
This is very precious. Thank you.
So we're about that time when Dorothy might have a poem.
Yes. Oops, sorry. What did I do there? Yes, thank you.
Do you have that?
Yes, Astrid. I have it. Thank you. Katerina's kindly sent it to me by the wonderful poet Mary Oliver. Poem. West wind in west wind. There are night birds in the garden below us singing. Oh, listen. For a moment, I thought it was our own bodies.
Thank you for reading it.
Would you read it again, Dorothy? It just went so fast, please.
Sure. West wind in west wind. There are night birds in the garden below us singing. Oh, listen. For a moment, I thought it was our own bodies.
Thank you.
Yes, so thank you for being with me. And if you want, before we go, one other quote by Gene, I'm happy to read you one, but if not, then I would. Okay, Viola says yes, so I.
Yes, sure.
Okay. It comes from the small steps, but now it's very in the front. What matters is to be a human being with another human being. to recognize the other person as another being in there. Even if it is a cat or a bird. If you are trying to help a wounded bird, the first thing you have to know is that there is somebody in there and that you have to wait for that person, in tips, that being in there to be in contact with you. That seems to be the most important thing.
Mm.
So there we go.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
We
Thank
hope
you.
You don't want to go, do you?
Oh, we'd like to have you back. Yes, thank you, Astrid.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
And see you.
Where was that quote from? Was that Gene?
The last one, the last quote is Gene, the small steps of therapy process.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.